Hey guys, Coach Will here from Iron Will Tennis. As always, I hope everybody's doing great and working hard. In this video, I am reviewing a teaching tool that I came across that I found very interesting. I've seen a couple of different things that are similar or trying to accomplish a similar goal, but the tool that I came across was the Sweet Area Racket from Toalson. Now, the purpose of this racket is it has a very small head size, smaller than a wooden racket actually. I think it was measured somewhere around like 55 to 60. And the whole purpose of it is obviously paying attention to striking the sweet spot on your own racket by practicing using this smaller racket. Now, my fear when I got a hold of it was that it wouldn't feel like a tennis racket. Like, I felt like if I used it, I was going to feel like I was hitting with a squash racket or something that wasn't meant to hit a tennis ball. But after using it for a little bit, I was actually pleasantly surprised that it felt like a tennis racket. I picked up the one that was weighed at 320 grams, which is roughly pretty close to the weight of the rackets that I usually use. So I was able to feel the balance of it and make it play the way I wanted it to. But the thing that I was most surprised about was when you hit the ball the way you're supposed to, it felt like a racket that was supposed to hit a tennis ball. Like, it felt like you could have been using any other racket. If I was going to compare it to an actual racket in terms of the way it felt like hitting with the Wilson Pro Staff. I would say it felt like that because it was a pretty rigid beam and the contact definitely felt a little bit more solid. I've hit with the Pro Staff before. It's not one of my favorite rackets, but I could definitely say that it felt very similar to that. The best part about it is I think the sound that it makes is very unique. Like, it hits with a very high-pitched sound, so obviously it has a smaller head size, so that makes sense. But whenever you don't hit the ball clean, you get a very auditory response that you're not hitting the ball clean. And the whole purpose of this racket is for you to actually start really dialing in on clean contact. So anything that it could do to make you be aware that you're not hitting the ball clean, I feel is really advantageous. I've come across other tools that did this, and a lot of them felt like gimmicky. I've had like a sleeve that goes over anybody's racket, which I thought was going to be pretty cool and versatile, but it didn't really do anything in terms of paying attention to the sweet spot. I actually think that it moved your sweet spot lower. It would work for like really tiny kids, just having them pay attention to really focusing on the center. But once you're a player and you're moving your racket around at certain speeds, I felt like it didn't work the same way. But however, the Toalson racket, I went through all the different shots. I hit serves, hit forehands, backhands, volleys, a couple half volleys and things like that. Even played a few games with students of mine just to get used to it, or just to see if there was anything that stood out about it that made it feel like it didn't make sense to try it. But I was pleasantly surprised. There wasn't any shot that I didn't feel like I could do. It just meant that I had to do it with a very specific purpose. I couldn't just get away with swinging the racket around and assuming that I was going to hit the ball clean. Because if I wasn't paying attention, it definitely let me know that the ball was even a little bit off center, because the sound would change. But I will say, when you hit the ball clean, you knew you hit the ball clean. And again, that's the goal that that racket was meant to produce. It was meant to have you focus on hitting a very specific area on the court, or a very specific area on the racket. I feel like with tennis now versus tennis way back in the day, if you look at really old players like in their late 70s who were playing tennis, who grew up playing in like the wood racket era and like that original shift out of wood rackets, there's something to be said for rackets being that small and it being difficult to use. Like, the rackets were too heavy, I agree, but at the same time, older players had to learn to use a very small head size. So when technology changed and now these older gentlemen or older ladies are using oversized rackets, they make such clean contact because they grew up playing on something that was about this big. So I feel like using it as a teaching tool, obviously you wouldn't use this racket full time, but using it as a consistent teaching tool would definitely pay off in terms of having somebody practice focusing on a very specific contact. Whether it's high, low, or anything, just having kids watch themselves hit the ball, or having any level of player watch themselves striking the ball over and over again, and getting more honed into how off center some of the shots are that you're not even aware of because you're not paying attention to it, or the racket's not letting you know that it's off center. It's compensating for you. And that's what a lot of the new technology is for. It's to help compensate for things that you originally had to do on your own. So with that, if anybody's thinking about using this racket as a teaching tool, I would 100% recommend using it. There's no complication to it. You can order it on Amazon. It took like a week or so to get to me. You do have to string it up yourself, but you can string it however you want. I do recommend stringing it like a lot lower because of how small it is. The strings aren't allowed to give the same. So I usually played at like 55. I dropped that Toalson Racquet all the way down to 40 and it felt the same. So just be aware of that when you do get one if you decide to pick one up. But for coaches, I feel like this is a very useful tool. There's no fluff to it. There's no extra sauce. It's all just, can the kid or your student focus on hitting the ball clean? Can the kid or your student focus on contact being where it's supposed to be? And if you look at it, I'll just hold these two rackets over top of each other. The sweet spot is high. And in most tennis rackets, your sweet spot is not dead center. It's actually a little bit above the center. And if you look at any racket diagram, you'll see why. But the sweet spot actually holds right about where you would want the contact to be. So I recommend picking it up as a teaching tool or a practice tool for yourself. I use it at least once a day, once every other day now, just in terms of like just getting my eyes locked in because I'm on court all day and I don't want to just be poking a ball around wasting my time. Even if I'm trying to teach somebody else, there's always something you can get out of it. So with that just wraps up this quick review of the Toalson Racquet. I definitely recommend grabbing it if you can. If you're a coach or just want another tool to add to your repertoire of things that you can use to increase your skill level or increase your focus, this is definitely something I would say that you should use. But with that, I'm Coach Will from Iron Will Tennis. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hopefully the channel continues to grow, and we will catch you guys in the next one.